This week in Trinidad, nothing dramatically stood out on its own, but it was one of those weeks where everything kinda added. Shootings, traffic fines, new crime laws, long lines at licensing office like Marshall Monday tickets back on sale, Tobago politics completely flipping itself on its head, and Trinidad quietly positioning itself on the international stage. So these are just some of the top stories that hit Trinidad this week. And then we go over each one of them and see exactly what took place. And let me start in a place with probably everybody mind already is. Between the 14th and the 15th of January, there was a recorded 4 shootings in Trinidad. Not all shootings equate to a murder. But at the end of the day, just a signal that gun violence still apparent in Trinidad, and none of the measures that seem to be put in place giving them a good enough reason to stay away from gun violence on the whole. The murders dramatically dropped last year compared to the previous years, but crime don't move in press releases. Crime move in real time to the people that it's actually happening to at the moment. At that point in time, you don't care about statistics. You only know what you're experiencing at the moment. And when we reach a stage where you're hearing gunshots almost every night, the conversation shifts from statistics to survival. And that is probably why the majority of people living in Trinidad right now become so desensitized to crime and violence. When gunshots become a norm, when every day you turn on the news, you're hearing 4 people get shot overnight. It become a norm. With this, it brings us to the government new take on how they're going to tackle the crime situation in Trinidad and Tobago. Instead of a full state of emergency, they're going to implement something called Zones of Special Operation, or SOSO. That is my shortened term for it, or the shortened term for it. In simple terms, what's going to take place is hot zones going to be designated as high crime rate areas. There will be a ramp up in police and army patrols. You're looking at things like searches, roadblocks, possible curfews, but only in those designated areas, not to the whole country like an actual state of emergency. Supporters say it's a better plan and it's more focused dealing with the zones itself, while the critics who have something to say still saying that you're dealing with the symptom and not the actual disease. But what it really tells us though is that the authorities know that crime really hasn't gone anywhere, but they're taking other measures to ensure that what's happening on the roads right now don't happen to the entire country when it comes to crime and locking down the country again like a SOE. And as we on the topic of talking about the government and the road fines and what's going on the roads, everybody knows since the start of the year, we'll go on with the traffic fines. Everything increased by 100%. The police force out in their numbers trying to reach that milestone, again, the award for the most tickets given out for the year. Now, we know that the minister was boasting over 1,700 tickets were given out in a period of 6 days. And he used that as proof or evidence to call the nation lawless. Arrive Alive, who is all for road safety, come out and made a statement that I have been making since this whole thing started this year. And the statement basically can be summarized into, you can't fine the public into road safety. You can't do that. Without proper driving education, infrastructure, and a properly functioning licensing system, fine just becoming another source of frustration for people who can't afford it, and it's not really a deterrent to people who can. And that frustration was evident this past weekend, because I don't know if you see the news, but Sunday gone, people were lined up outside licensing offices, waiting in line. And I'm talking about line of 15 plus cars, 20 plus cars, 30 plus cars outside licensing office while the gates were closed because licensing office closed on a Sunday. So what they're doing there, they were waiting in line to hold a position to make sure that they could get their car inspected as soon as licensing office opened on Monday morning. Because if you're in a line of 30 people, 50 people before the place open, nobody knows what's going to happen on the day that they actually open. A lot of people might hear this and say, well, these people need to have a shit in order. They're not supposed to be breaking the law. Common sense could tell you something very simple. While certain people in that line probably do have valid inspection, nobody debating that, the majority of people in that line probably have valid inspection that going to expire. And if it's going to expire, what you need to do? Go in and get your car inspected. So these are not people breaking the law. These are people affected by the outcome of the change in the law. They're following the rules. They just need to go and inspect the car. But because of what's going on right now and the lack of proper infrastructure and functioning in licensing office, you know, I know, it have 15 cashing booths, but only one cashier is be available at a time. But we ain't going on that road. So people were frustrated. People, they could see it evident that when compliance requires you to camp out overnight, the issue isn't laziness. The issue is the capacity that you could control or you could take in based on this new law that you make. You can't tighten enforcement and then bottleneck the process to get shit corrected at the same time. That is just my view on it. And over in Tobago made a pretty big statement this week. It was a literal landslide, a washout, a wishy-wash, 15-0. The entire Tobago was painted blue. And whatever people feel about it now, that was the result. That's the end result. And that only means that this new administration have no room for excuses and no room for flaws, because the public give them 100% of their trust. It's only up to the administration now to prove the public right. So going forward, we wish the TPP all the best of luck. Now zooming out a little bit, looking into a little international news that pertains to Trinidad, we have been leaning more on America when it comes to energy and security, while America has been pulling back or cutting ties with countries in the Caribbean at the same time. Now, while all this going on with America, the tensions with Venezuela and Trinidad still remains there. We don't know how this relation could mend or how it's going to move forward from here. So basically, Trinidad finds itself walking on a very thin line, trying to benefit from the alignment with the US while trying not to make itself a regional or a Caribbean outcast. And how that will be balanced is, well, it's up for debate. We had to see. We had to see how that's going to be balanced and how the government going to treat this situation. And one of the more quiet news stories this week, but an important one, is the Shearwater contract. This is an offshore energy exploration contract, and it basically deals with data collection and planning for the future. Now, this doesn't automatically mean that we have an oil boom or we gain oil, but it does mean that Trinidad and Tobago is still being taken seriously on the international energy scale, which is a good thing. To be honest, the way that the economy is set up right now, banking account and the checking account, and you had to transfer the funds, and we could really use some more funds coming in. I mean, the government looking to borrow $1 billion from another Caribbean country, I think. And wow, I don't know if that's a good idea or not. You could let me know in the comments below if you think that's a good idea. When you sum it up all together, right? The crime really hasn't disappeared. The government still tightening their control, but they're trying to be a little more lenient with it. So we could see that now with the zone operational, special operational zones, or however you call it. While the citizens trying to adjust, it is a big step for citizens, even law-abiding citizens. Like we explained with the licensing office, not everybody there was breaking the law. Some people just need to have the car inspected, the vehicle inspected. None of these stories exist by themselves. That was the week in Trinidad. I'll try my best to keep these videos coming. I'll try my best to break it down as unbiasedly and as informed and factual as possible. If you like these videos, don't forget to like the video. Leave a comment with your thoughts down below. Which one do you think was the most pressing news story for this week? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content. For Them Fellas Reviews, is Jeremy, and I'll see everybody in the next one. Later.